Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Deaf History Month celebration. We are happy to be here as the MCs. I'm Canoe Bourne.
Hi there, my name is Taraya Cunningham. I would like to introduce Superintendent John Serrano. Thank you.
Hello. I believe I have to stand, but I'm not tall like Canoe here. So let me rise up here. Good morning. It's so inspiring to see so many of you here to celebrate this special event. Again, I am John A. Serrano, the superintendent of the school. And before we proceed, I would like to thank Frederick County Executive Director Jessica Fitzwater and her leadership team for sponsoring and supporting the Deaf History recognition here in the county. Thank you so much. Second, on behalf of MSD, it is really an honor and we are pleased to be hosting this Deaf History event here, especially in this building, the Bjorlee Library, the museum. This is such a treasured building on campus. Those with the familiar faces here, either current workers or alumni, you know you have a special place for this place. The artifacts, the pictures, the stories that convey the rich history of MSD's history are here. When we think about the history of Frederick County, I can't help but think that deaf history here in Frederick really paralleled the history of Frederick County. This school was established in 1868, and the parallels of growth are fascinating. Frederick County grew through the years with all kinds of transitions, and the deaf community here is very strong, very embedded here in Frederick County. The culture of the deaf are here in Frederick County, and the parallels are very similar. And it's really nice to have this event here where it all started. For the kickoff, we'd like to recognize the Deaf History Month by thanking those who are here today. Thank you for those who are hosting this event. And during Deaf History Month, you will learn that the deaf community is more than just a group of people. It is a rich, historical, cultural, traditional values that we possess and enjoy. So we are pleased to have this event, and thank you. And I would like to present Lori Bonhejo, who will speak next. I don't know what I missed.
No. Just like you, I have to stand up here as well. I'm a little bit short. I'm assuming everyone can see me now. My name is Lori Bonhejo, and I'm the Vice President of the Maryland Deaf Community Center. The President, Linda Stoltz, was sorry she couldn't attend today because she's not feeling well. You know, when you're not feeling well, the best thing to do is stay home, right? I'm really thrilled to have this event today, and especially more excited to have Frederick County Executive Director here as well, Jessica Fitzwater. Her support and her team's support is just outstanding. We would not be as successful as we are without their support. I feel very fortunate to live in Frederick County. You know, often when we're visiting other places, people will say, oh, wow, you're so lucky to live in Frederick. It's so deaf-friendly. And not just that, but we have administration who are really supportive of the deaf community. Seeing all of you here today shows that we have a strong deaf community here, and we are part of the greater deaf community. I'm thrilled to have the panel here to explain about the history, to help us be more proud of Frederick. Enjoy yourselves today, and thank you all as well. Thank you, Jessica. Oh. I was just instructed that I'm supposed to introduce our next guest, Frederick County Executive Director Jessica Fitzwater, to the stage. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. I guess it's still the morning. We are so excited and honored and pleased to help host today's event honoring deaf history and to be able to partner with the School for the Deaf here in the museum for the event. Frederick County has a thriving deaf and hard of hearing community with a long history that we're excited to learn a bit more about today. I know that when I had a chance to tour the campus with Superintendent Serrano last year, I had never been in this museum before. And I was so amazed at the amount of history that is preserved here, the intersections with the history of the school and the history of Frederick County. And so I'm so glad that we're here today so that folks can really appreciate the long history, the rich history, and continue to learn about really what makes Frederick County such a special place. The Maryland School for the Deaf opened its doors, as you heard, in September of 1868 with just 34 students and has been serving our community and really the entire state of Maryland ever since. We're here today in the Bjorlee Museum whose collection begins with a true call to recognize the history of the school and artifacts that are important not just to the school's history but the Frederick community as a whole. And this museum has such an eclectic mix of artifacts and possessions and is home to so many items that are important not just to our local deaf history, but really deaf history nationally, that many items of this museum were loaned to the Smithsonian for their exhibit Through Deaf Eyes for 2 years. So that just shows the importance of this history, not just to our local community, but really to the entire nation. So we should really feel a strong sense of pride over that. There are many antique communication devices that are housed in this museum, and I've been told that many of the current students are shocked to just learn about the cumbersome machines that were necessary in the past to help communicate and to see how far our technology has really come in the years as we continue to see that part of our deaf community grow. This museum also holds the history of not just Frederick County, but also students. Records of students and alumni to the school are available, along with assistance for descendants to come and research their past. So it really is something for us to be proud of. And as we continue to celebrate our rich history in Frederick County, we also celebrate the present. Just 3 years ago, the Maryland School for the Deaf was featured in the film Audible, which was nominated for Best Documentary Short at the 94th Academy Awards. And our future in Frederick County is bright. Here, in Frederick County, we understand the value of partnerships. And I must say, I have the pleasure of getting to travel across the state and tell Frederick County's story. And it's one of the things that I get to say everywhere, that we have amazing partnerships and relationships in our community, whether it's with our education system, our municipalities, our nonprofits, our faith-based organizations, our small businesses. We really all work together to make life better for people. And the work of all of the 22, and my number might be wrong, but I think 22 organizations representing the deaf and hard of hearing community that have collaborated to create the Maryland Deaf Community Center. We are so excited that the Deaf Community Center's home will be right here in Frederick, and Frederick County has been very pleased to be a partner helping to support that project. We know it's continuing to make strides through the city's planning process, and we can't wait to celebrate when the building is finally complete. But it's not just a building, it's a community, and the community center has been providing amazing programming for the deaf and hard of hearing community and also other Frederick County residents who want to learn ASL or who want to learn more about how to be great neighbors with everyone in our community. So I cannot commend the staff, the volunteers enough for the work you're doing to bring that project to fruition. So for all that the deaf and hard of hearing community contributes to Frederick County, it gives me great pleasure to offer a proclamation today representing Deaf History Month. And I'll read the proclamation, and then I would love to invite some of our partners from the school and the Deaf Community Center and some of our students up for a photograph with the proclamation when I'm finished reading it. Whereas people who identify as deaf and hard of hearing belong to a cultural and linguistic community with shared values, language, social rules of behavior, and history, which are all passed down through generations. And whereas Frederick County has many thousands of deaf and hard of hearing residents who work in our community and elsewhere in the region, the county is home to the Maryland School for the Deaf and will soon be home to the Maryland Deaf Community Center. The deaf population of Frederick County includes individuals who use American Sign Language as their primary language and those who use hearing aids, assistive listening devices, or other forms of amplification. And whereas Deaf History Month presents the opportunity to increase public awareness of the culture of people who are deaf and to promote equal access to information and services for deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind individuals. And whereas today we recognize Deaf History Month, the deaf community in Frederick County, and organizations that increase awareness for our deaf population. Now, therefore, as the County Executive of Frederick County, Maryland, I hereby proclaim April 2024 as Deaf History Month in Frederick County and commend this observance to all our residents, signed by myself, Jessica Fitzwater, presented this 25th day of March 2024. And I'd love to invite Superintendent Serrano, Lori, and anyone else from the Maryland Deaf Community Center who's here, and our students, and anyone else who would like to join for a photo. Wherever we want to stand. Here, you want to hold it? Is this good? Look that way.
Are we good? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And next we have our panel, and our student leader is going to introduce our panelists. Okay, thank you. All right.
It's a big honor to have the proclamation announced here today.
We are excited to have a panel here today, and we have some questions we'd like to ask them. And then when we are done, we'll turn the questions over to the audience, all right?
This is our first question. Please provide some of your background experience regarding the school, any volunteer work you have within the community. I'll go ahead and start. Hello there, my name is Julie Bourne. Where do I start? I was born right over there, you know, at Frederick Health Hospital. I was born and raised here in Frederick, and I'm still here in Frederick. My mom is in attendance as well as my sister. I went to Maryland School for the Deaf. They started with providing home visits to my family, and then I started attending the school and graduated from here. I taught here. I have a long relationship with Frederick and Maryland School for the Deaf. Hi there. My name is Melissa McLean. I was born and raised here, and I graduated in 1991. And I call Maryland School for the Deaf my first home. I can't separate from it. I still work here as well.
Hello, I am Stephen Semler. I graduated here in 1995. I was raised here at the school from 1980 to 1995, and I see a few old familiar faces here today. And these are the people who led me through my life after I graduated. I went to an NTID after graduation, and then I worked with the co-op there at a national bank service, and I've been there for 25 years. And this is my home since 1980.
Hello, everyone. I see so many familiar faces here today. My name is Mary Lynn Lawley. This is my name sign, Mary Lynn. I started my life here. I graduated from, this is my first job after graduating from Gallaudet in '66. I worked in the middle school as a social studies teacher, and I retired from here as the elementary school principal. So I have a long relationship with this school, and I'll share all of that, and I'm happy to see all of you today.
It is difficult for me to find today because of the instruction I had 8 years ago. But I came to Maryland School for Deaf in 1965, and I stayed for 28 years. I've come back to volunteer and do other things. Okay, I spent 5 years in this museum, and doing it 1910 to probably 17 until I had the stroke. But I have not gotten in that street. And the good friends I had there, and the students, some of the students. Judy was one of my students many years ago. Well, I guess probably that good enough.
Great. What changes have you seen in the Frederick deaf community of the past and today? What changes have you seen?
All right, I'll go ahead and answer this question. When I first came to this campus back in 1966, there were no deaf teachers in the elementary school department. There were deaf teachers in the middle school and high school. In the elementary school, they focused a lot on the oral method of education. Sign language was not permitted. Whereas in the middle school and high school, we simcommed. We had to use our voices regardless of how terrible we sounded. So definitely large changes have happened. You know, we had to use skirts. You know, skirts below our knees. They were not allowed above our knees. And then over time, we were allowed to wear slacks. And the big shocks was we were allowed to, you know, when they allowed mini skirts, you know, the school was just shocked to see teachers wearing mini skirts. Can you believe it? And then over time, you know, as I transitioned to the elementary school and working with Mary, you know, I joined her department, and the both of us worked in the elementary school. And at that time, you know, we started to use American Sign Language as the language of instruction, which was so powerful. You know, we were able to sign to children in their natural language. And at that time, most children of deaf parents were very academically successful, whereas the deaf children of hearing parents had academic struggles. Whereas today, at times, we can't tell, you know, if the child has deaf parents or hearing parents because they're using sign language, you know, at such a young age. And that's so powerful. You know, with the three of the panelists here, you know, one family is from deaf family, the other from hearing families, and we can't tell the difference. So we focused on the use of ASL as instruction, and students developed fluency in both languages. You know, in the old buildings that are still here on campus, a lot of them are gone. You know, the old elementary school building is gone. You know, the main building is gone. You know, the vocational PE building is gone as well. So, you know, the brick, you know, buildings are definitely a sign of Frederick County. But there's definitely been a lot of changes over the year. I'm not sure if anyone else has anything else they'd like to add.
To connect with what she said, I was the first person to wear pink slacks. And the principal, Mr. S, was on her too. And one of the other beginning teachers at Virginia, California, And one of the other teachers called her on a trip that I had worn black. Anyway, and it was just, and it was okay as long as the top came below her butt. Well, anyway, and that's again, and the kids had hearing aids. It was so big and heavy that they made indents in their heads. And they had to end up making pads to stick under the hearing aid. I'm glad it's down to something else now. I had the first child on campus with a cochlear implant. And that child, so you distracted me. Yeah, I know. And that child was in my class, and so I did make out reports and things how the cochlear implant went. And finally got to the ear and said it was all some kind of wires around the room and this, that, and the other to be able to use hearing aids. And finally got to the point where when I was here, where it was much better. At least the children did not have head trauma. Anyway, a lot of different things. I think the buildings, as she said, the old building's gone. Things like that. You really, I love working here. I taught school before, and I did not like it. And I came back home to Frederick, and I saw the job in the paper of a teacher aide here. And so I said, that is something different. Let me try that. By the time I was here 1 month, this is where I wanted to be. I hope I did my best, but this is where I wanted to be. I loved the kids, and I hugged the kids, and we could do some of that then. I've been contacted with MSD for 59 years. That's some of these young people is more than your life. And this is where I wanted to be. I started as a teacher aide. A teacher got sick the month after I got here, and they put me in that classroom. And they sent me to Smith College, which was all oral, and we were told when I first came in, sit on your hands if somebody from the state comes in. That's what we were told. Unjust, but sit on your hands. And of course, we saw what little bit we could. While I was learning, I had been to church with a deaf person all my life. And it was pat, pat, stomp, stomp, push, and not much else. Anyway, I guess that's what I have to say about changing, but there's a whole lot more. But anyway.
I'd also like to add, being born and raised here in Frederick, my mom is a single mother, and she's hearing, and I'm hard of hearing, but I attended this school since birth. There's been so many changes, doubly for me as a Black deaf woman. Hearing people, where I was born. They didn't see, many Black deaf women here. And there was struggles for my mom because she didn't know ASL, and she was trying to learn, going back and forth between ASL and BASL. I was happy that we moved here so that my mom could learn, and my mom learned about the different technology. I was able to teach my mom, and she taught me. We worked together, and we helped each other. I'm happy, that my mom didn't give up because she had a very tough life. I have a degree in administration and a medical degree, and now I'm a student at University of Maryland, College Park. My daughter is a CODA, and she's a proud CODA. She told me last summer, I laughed so hard. You know, we went through a drive-through, and I was like, oh, you're deaf? My daughter was like, someone looked at my daughter and was like, are you deaf? And she's like, no, I'm a CODA. And then they bumped into each other at the Maryland Deaf Community Center meeting. And they were so impressed with how well my daughter signed, you know, because my daughter's a proud CODA. And I'm just really impressed with her. You know, at first, she struggled a little bit, you know, but over time, she's become more confident. You know, I'm grateful to God and appreciative for my mom and my daughter.
I would like to add, when I was about 3 years old and they discovered that I was deaf, my parents decided to send me here to the school. And I thank my parents for that, for bringing me here, and their motivation to learn sign as well through the years. That they've been able to communicate with me, and they were willing to bring me here to let me stay in the dorms. They would bring me here every Sunday and have, you know, fellowship with other staff members and students. And through the years, I have been involved with sports, cross country, and track. Also, I was running the Orioles Nest when we had it here, so I was involved in many different opportunities and work opportunities through the years. And I just want to thank my parents for bringing me up well and having the life I have now. And I do remember the old buildings and the dorms that were here on campus. And it's all good memories.
There's so many things that have changed, you know, since I started here. And, you know, I'm still here now, you know, and I'm looking through my kids' eyes from my own eyes growing up here. You know, I was under David Denton. He was the superintendent. And yes, total communication was the method of instruction at the time. And I have many wonderful memories. One thing that I look past on is in the dorm. Everyone stayed in the dorm. And I'm so thrilled to be here this morning because Marilyn and Mary taught me, and other people here are former dorm counselors, so I have a lot of connections here. One of the interpreters was one of my former teachers. And, you know, students who are here today, you know, you'll have that experience later. You'll be here and be like, oh, yes, I remember them. You know, we were in Urbana, and then we moved to Walkersville. And, you know, at that time, 80% of the roads were gravel. So when we were coming to school, you know, riding, it was a rough road, you know, and then eventually the roads were paved and we got to school and it was nice and paved. Whereas like the commuting experience for students today is much more smooth. Another change was that in the past we had a lot of hearing teachers. They were wonderful, don't get me wrong. You know, I was so excited to see Mary today after so many years. And also, the opportunities for deaf people were much limited in the past. And while I was growing up, you know, I was confused. And when James Tucker, the former superintendent, came in, he was very strong about pushing the need for sign language. And, you know, when I was talking with my kids, you know, about the past when I was growing up, that most of the teachers were hearing, they were looking at me like, impossible. Whereas today, most of the teachers are deaf. So that's been a really positive change here at the school. We had wonderful hearing people who were working with us and such strong relationships with the community. But now there's much more opportunities for deaf people. You know, people who grew up here and are working here. Another one thing, my mom used to work here. You know, in the Eli building, there was a teacher's lounge. And, you know, people smoked in the teacher's lounge, if you can believe it. Oh, I remember that. Yeah, teachers used to, you know, on their prep times, like run to the teacher's lounge and, you know, get a few puffs before they went back to the classroom. If you can believe it, imagine that. So just so many things have changed for the good. Now, our third question is, what changes have happened here at MSD that you're so grateful for? There's more deaf people who are moving to Frederick, and the community is growing. I see so many changes. You can get involved with MDCC regardless of what organization you're involved in. And I would like to get more involved. It's a way to show other deaf people that deaf people can be involved in a variety of activities. And there's more, recognition, but there needs to be more for Black deaf women and BIPOC people of color as well. This is my bragging moment, that the Frederick is a deaf-friendly town. You would agree with me, right? You go to a restaurant, you go to the doctor. People know what to do and how to interact with deaf people. They provide an interpreter, provide VRI, at restaurants, they'll figure out how to communicate with us. And a lot of the high schools here in Frederick provide sign language as a language elective. So this is such a deaf-friendly town. And that's really one positive aspect of the town. And that helps the relationship between the deaf school and Frederick County at large. And plus, Executive Fitzwater stated, the MDCC will become a landmark for deaf people. And we will, having these two things established in Frederick County, that just makes it a wonderful place for deaf people to live. And really, we should become a model for other counties within Maryland, of what opportunities and options there are for deaf people in the community.
I forgot the question. But I was thinking that this here today is something that is very important and different. I don't want this. Yeah, that's distracting me. I want my voice to go, and my whatever little bit of signing I can do now go. This here today, I think, is a very wonderful thing. But I wish that we had a few more hearing people, because that is what we really want. It's an intermingling among people. I was not sure of what this would be here today, but this is what I wrote down. I wrote down something. More. It is in the community. Maybe having newspapers to do more personal interest stories, like the skiing, mountain climbing event that there was in the newspaper. To do more things together. This here is with people getting together. Is one of the things that I listed down that could be done. And this I'm very proud to be a part of now. If you think that I look funny doing funny, I had a stroke. What is that? Stroke 8 years ago, but I still keep on going. And this,
I'm so excited about things here about Maryland School for the Deaf. We were the first to have vocational education, so we have that over there. You can see what the school looked like from the past to today. And also on the corner building is currently under renovations. It will open a state-of-the-art building for different kinds of tech education, career education, to prepare our students for the future. It should open in about 1 to 2 years. I'm so excited about that. You also mentioned about how specific buildings are gone, and I agree. It touches my heart. My former
Primary building.
growing up in the primary building, that's what it used to look like up there. That's, it's just so touching. I slept in the dorm over there. But at the same time, it's exciting, buildings being replaced with a beautiful elementary school building. And my children grew up there and created so many memories. And our children are thriving over there. So today, there are so many exciting things coming soon. So, come back again and see those changes over the years, especially with the new CTE building coming after it's being renovated. So please come back. I wanted to add, she used the word primary. That's how they used to sign it. It was called the primary department. And we also had the intermediate department. That was for middle school. And we had the advanced department. That was what we called high school. And now those terms have changed, elementary school, middle school, high school. But that's just one change. Our curriculum matches Frederick County, Maryland standards. It's statewide curriculum. We have to meet state standards here. So our expectations of our students are very high. We expect them to do well, graduate with honors, go on to further education, for example, Gallaudet, RIT, CSUN, many other programs today are available. In the past, it was just one university. That was your only real option. Now, today, there are so many opportunities thanks to technology. For example, Zoom, video phones, computers. I can't name everything because I'm outdated myself. I'd also like to add, it's really funny. This recently happened to me. My daughter, she had called me from home, and she's a student at Towson University. It's her first year. And my mom was like, how do you do Zoom? How do you do that? And I explained it to my mom. My mom is a fan of, old school. And so my daughter has used it quite frequently. And my mom was like, what is Zoom? And I'm like, my mom knows about video phones. But I was explaining to her, it's the same idea. And so I had my daughter, set up a Zoom so that my mom could get an idea of what it looked like. And my mom was sitting next to me, in our basement at home. And my daughter called and said, let's get the Zoom connected. And my mom was like, oh, it's a real person. She thought it was going to be like a photoshopped person. And my daughter, would sign. And my mom was like, oh, it's like the same idea as a video phone. And I'm like, yeah, I thought it was so funny. It was nice, a good way for families to be taught sign language as well. It's nice to expose hearing people to that kind of technology as well, Zoom through ASL and things like that. Our final question. What is your vision for Maryland School for the Deaf and as well as Frederick County in the future? There's a lot. Where do we begin? So I retired, and wow, when I started thinking about my retirement, I was so nervous, what is here in the community for deaf adults? What's available here in Frederick? What's accessible for deaf senior citizens? And that's our current issue. You young people need to start thinking about the senior citizens, because I'm there now and I'm seeing the lack of resources. Maryland School for the Deaf, Maryland Deaf Community Center, we can do a lot more for senior citizens within the state and nationwide as well. So my vision is for you all to work together to help the lives of senior citizens. And it's very meaningful for me, and I'm very active in this. But after me, who's next?
Are you all right?
I've been thinking about becoming not a nursing assistant, but, helping people, like within doctor's offices, because of HIPAA and things like that. But I've been looking into, more billing and coding and things like that, In some of my doctor's offices, they've explained that they have, deaf patients. And, sometimes while waiting for interpreters arriving, it'd be great to have deaf people that work in offices to help the deaf community in Frederick when they go to offices. So, I do have a medical degree right now, and I'm trying to think for myself where I can start. This is something I can do as a hard of hearing person. But, I'm always focusing on what deaf people need and what the deaf community, and supporting the community and trying to be helpful and thinking of other people. But it'd be nice that at these different doctors' offices, if they had people they could communicate with and was accessible in their language. Can you go ahead?
When I saw the question, what I envisioned more than anything with Frederick and MSD, there's a lot of dreams I have here. But when I look specifically for what can we do for MSD, I think what Ms. Harris said here was interesting that she mentioned, is having that collaboration, that deaf hearing collaboration, like what is happening here, and it is so important. And it's important for us to build that relationship more so we can do that. Like internship programs, maybe doing something with the executive office down at Frederick County, so students have those opportunities, but looking for areas that we can increase those connections. Like the Ely office, the commissioner's office, the police office.
The city office, Chamber of Commerce.
The Chamber of Commerce. I don't want to boast, but Mary Lynn has done so much with MDCC, and that MDCC has done so much, and now they're not only focused on senior citizens, but they're looking at every deaf person in the state. I, as a mother with deaf children, I'm excited about the work that they have laid in front of us, and have this opportunity to get together and to integrate. And it's so easy to have something that you have just an age group that is doing its own work and another age group doing another particular work, but it would be neat to have all these age groups work together and have those collaborative opportunities, not only for our deaf children, but for our senior citizens as well.
I was thinking the same thing, that more get into the community. A few years ago, there were several history activities here on campus where the museum was open. I think there was a Flag Day celebration one time. The Daughters of American Revolution did an encampment on campus. Lewis and Clark expedition stopped by. I think there's a marker on the walk out there. These were all things that everybody could come to the campus. And I think people look to it because still there is a curiosity about people getting together, a curiosity about this place in Frederick City. It is a surprise when I say that I worked at the Maryland School for the Deaf for that many years. It is still curious. And so we have to maybe sort of smooth out that curiosity. And it has to go both ways. The community and the deaf community and the regular world, whatever you want to call it. You just have to get together to smooth things out, not to feel afraid of each other, but there is this curiousness about Maryland School for the Deaf, and it's been here for 150 few years. And to get that, by the way, I've been working for 25 years with the African American history of this area, and we have it soon opening under the parking deck here on Carroll Street, and Carroll and Saint. There's a green awnings there, stuff. So we've been doing that, and I've been working with that for 25 years. it's something maybe you can get in collaboration with some different other organizations. And this, I was like, let people know what you're doing. I get a little bit here and there, but this is a big part of the community, an old part of the community. Just maybe a little bit more information about it. We have Frederick County Public Schools have something in the paper all the time, good or bad, and mainly good. We could do the same thing here. I can't do it, actually, maybe put we in it, but the young people here could do it. Like this, I said before, like this what we are doing right now, only maybe more people could have been involved. And to let people know that, I don't know. That's one of the things I thought about in the future. Yeah. Thank you.
And may I add as well about there's like 12 different organizations here, like MDCC, and what they have done with such great collaboration, and with all the organizations that have been involved with that. I think we need more young people to be involved in doing this kind of work, giving up their time to work with these civic organizations. And the older people will be leaving, departing. So we need that next generation. Any questions from the audience? Yes, we have one here. Would you please come forward?
Good afternoon. Oh, I'm sorry.
4 feet 10. That's okay. Good afternoon. Technology, thank you, John, County Secretary. My name is Elizabeth Chang. I'm so delighted, and thank you so much for inviting us. I'm the Executive Director for the Asian American Center, Frederick. Such a history-making date. I've been here for 30 years, and it's wonderful that we began to have more work together. My focus in the agency is health equities, and definitely for our deaf and hard of hearing and blind communities. When we talk about collaboration, I want to share, I'm so proud that we have probably a good 5 of the deaf community members join our community health workers. Let me tell you, community health workers, these are members from the communities. That means from your communities. They came to get the training from us, 100 hours of community health workers, and they get certified so they can now find work in the health field. And also we have interpreters training, and we also partnered with MDCC. So I'm asking you all to help us promote, the training. We can have interpreters in the training. Community health workers is a very important field in public health, addressing the needs of community, speak the language, know the culture. So I'm very excited. Thank you for the support as well from our state, from our county, to develop more workforce development for our community. So I'm here to thank the school and thank the MDCC and ask that you help us bring more to the young people, and also I'm not old, 70-something, right? So we're still middle-aged, right? So we need to serve our seniors, young seniors, mature seniors, in really having a quality of life after we retire. So thank you so much. I really want to say that it is wonderful for this event today, but continue to collaboration about workforce development, for our, CHWs, community health workers. So thank you. We also pay them while they're getting training. We get those federal dollars to give them $2,000 to $5,000, and then we prepare a job for them. They get additional $7,500 as stipend. So young people, that you can do a lot of those, training during internship or and also during summertime. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah. I would like to say something else again. I want to show you something. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this booklet. It's the Maryland Bulletin of February 2012. I did a research. 3 of us from Maryland School for the Deaf. Chad Baker, who was a former principal Linda Stahl, who was a former secretary, and I was a former teacher. We took over a year to do this. We traveled to Baltimore whenever chance we could get to Maryland School for the Blind to do research, and they really let their building open to us. And so we produced this book. It was supposed to be a chapter in a book about Maryland School for the Deaf, and they decided to print it in the Maryland Bulletin. And so I'm sure this is in the library someplace here. I think the Frederick County Library, and this booklet was the best-selling booklet, or the best booklet in MSD's history, and I was so glad to be a part of it. It is a study of black education for deaf children, deaf black education. It was started at Maryland School for the Blind, and it was from 1972. I'm sorry, 1872 to 1956, when the school was integrated here. It was a very interesting, it was a beautiful time, and I was very happy and proud to be a part of this. We researched for over a year doing this, and anyway, I thought I would share that with you. I'm proud of it. Oh, thank you.
Very good. We have a few minutes left. Any other questions? Last question, last call.
They're just taking turns about who's going to be mirroring. Now, Ms. Harris, the African American Center that you've mentioned, maybe you could have one deaf person to come work in the museum there. Do you think that'd be possible?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite.
Okay. This question is for Ms. Harris. I'd like to ask you, Mary,
Yeah.
Over here.
Here.
when the African American Center is opened, I'm wondering if you would consider including a deaf person to work there at the center.
Or down here, yeah, sure we would. There's mainly volunteers, so volunteers would always be welcome. I will pass that along.
Last chance. Very good. Are you sure? All right. Let's give a round of applause.
Yeah, I will
And we would like to close and take your opportunity now to look around the museum. There's many interesting things to see. And we also have the Hessian Barracks open.
And I'd like to add and say thank you for Jessica Fitzwater for hosting the event today. We're really honored to have the proclamation made here. Thank you.
Yeah.